Welcome to The Secrets of Success. By following the proven techniques of the guests who appear on this series, you'll learn that even successful people run into detours and failures, and how you can apply their success techniques to change your life.
You're now listening to the most unique show on radio, the show dedicated to making you a success. Sean Ryan wants you to get in gear and translate strategy into results. Today, he'll tell us how. Sean, welcome to our show.
Bill, thanks for having me.
It's going to be a pleasure for us because we want to find out a lot of your secrets. But first, I'd like you to tell our audience why we should listen to you. Give us a little bit about your background.
Let's see. I grew up as a small child in southwestern Ohio. But since then, I've spent, after going to university, I've spent many years in the corporate world, and I've spent the better part of the last 30 years bouncing between the corporate world and the consulting world, and I've had lots of opportunities to help organizations drive strategy to better results, and hopefully people can learn from my experiences a little bit.
And when you say lots of organizations, I just don't want you to be modest. I think I read two of them. Somebody named Disney and somebody else named FedEx.
Those would be a couple that I've had the pleasure, the opportunity to work with as a consultant over time.
So if they're coming to you for advice, I think we can learn a little something from you. Would you agree?
Hopefully I learned enough from them that I can pass on and would be helpful to you and your audience, for sure.
And I'm sure you will. Sean, you've written a book, Get in Gear, and of course that's what we're talking about today. And you mentioned in your book, I think you give the numbers, 75 to 90% of organizations fall short of achieving the results that they expect from their strategies. 75 to 90%. I mean, if a child did that, we would either blame the teacher or put him in another school, etc. So is that a realistic number? And can you tell us what you mean and what you're actually seeing?
It's absolutely realistic. And frankly, it was surprising, shocking to me, too, when we were doing the research on the book. My experience had always been, and look, I'm a consultant. People call me when they're challenged. So my experience over that 30 plus years had always been that there were opportunities for organizations to be better. Otherwise, they would never call me. But I always felt like that experience must have been unique to me. And so when we began the research on the book, and we looked at other organizations, and what we found is, and it is incredibly well documented in the research, whether you look at the things that have been published by Harvard or Fortune or Forbes magazines, which we talk about in the book, that number is pretty solid, that 75 to 90% of organizations fall short of getting the results that they expect from their strategies. And many of them leave up to 50% of the potential results on the table. I think the number's pretty surprising, pretty shocking, but it's also real.
And I would assume it applies to whether we're a small dental office, 5 people, we're talking Disney and FedEx, but whether it's a dental office, small manufacturing company, or the restaurant that's running in our local town with 15 employees.
Absolutely 100% true. It covers all sizes of businesses, but it also covers not-for-profit and charity organizations too.
Now, Sean, you have a subheading in your book, and I was kidding you about it before the show. I particularly liked it. That's why I wrote it down. How to change a light bulb in less than 6 weeks. Wow. And I want you to explain about that because I think the reasoning behind it is great, but this is your show, so let's talk.
Sure. So it was very true. We actually were working with the maintenance department, and it was a large maintenance department. It'd be a good-sized organization if it sat on its own. It was 1,300 people inside a massive organization. And the maintenance department was incredible. They were responsible for making sure that organization could manufacture everything that they were trying to manufacture, but they were also responsible for all of the rest of the maintenance too, including things like changing the light bulbs, moving pictures from on the wall from one office to another. And they were just historically in epic proportion challenged in terms of some of those most basic fundamental blocking and tackling kind of things. It really did take 6 weeks when we started working with them to change a light bulb because people had to put in a request. It had to get organized and sent to the right group that was some centralized group way on the far side of the facility, and then they had to get it into their work process, and it took forever.
And I think this is almost like the joke, and you fill in your favorite group. How many lawyers, doctors, accountants does it take to turn on an air conditioner, fix a copier, etc.? But I think you have a great purpose behind that. Is it best to go to the actual workers and say, how would you change this procedure? What's holding you up? Because, of course, 6 weeks is almost absurd for something like that by the time you do the paperwork, when in theory you should be able to say, Mary, Al, would you fix that light bulb, or would you repair the computer? Is it best to go to the bottom of the pyramid and talk to the workers themselves?
Almost 100% of the time. I mean, our fundamental philosophy is to try to push responsibility and the latitude to take action as close to the frontline team members as you possibly can. They know what's going on. And that's what we found in that particular case was when we talked to the frontline team members, they could tell us all of the reasons, all of the barriers that were in their way to be able to get that light bulb change faster or the picture move faster, or frankly, more importantly for that organization, the equipment that they were responsible for maintaining, getting that equipment maintained quicker, better, faster, so that they could deliver real value for their customers.
And of course, to a company, that translates to dollars, to efficiency, and a smooth running machine, rather than if I'm the one waiting for a light bulb and I'm complaining every day I can't see the work, or I'm having trouble seeing it, or on a cloudy day it's really dark in here, or if it's an air conditioner, etc. I want to see results, and I'm happier if I get it done, and you're happy, and the stockholders are happy.
Well, absolutely, and that's a great point, Bill. That it's better for the organization, which makes it better for the shareholders because it's more efficient, deliver better profits, and that's what the research indicates. That 50% of the results that gets left on the table, a lot of that is the financial results that are incredibly important to shareholders. But it's also important for customers. Customers have expectations that need to get met better when we execute on our strategies. And frankly, it's better for the team members because the team members don't like the inefficiency. They don't like the bureaucracy. They don't like being in a situation where they can't perform their best all the time. So it's really better all the way around.
Now, Sean, to give us an overview, and I love your book, Get in Gear, because it simplifies things. I think it's about 160 pages of text, so it's not overwhelming. It's just like the example we just talked about. It's real world. When you deal with the companies, what are some of the typical, looking at it from the sky view, typical errors that you see and that we will be talking about in the rest of the show?
Sure. So we identified these 7 gears that connect strategy to results, that if you align those gears and you work on each of them, then ultimately over a period of time, you're going to get better results. Very quickly, I'll give you a quick overview of the 7. They are right people in the right roles with the right capabilities. The second gear is aligning the architecture, so system, structures, process, and culture. We can go into those details later about exactly what all those things mean, because that's a little bit of tech talk there around organizational stuff. The third is creating a culture of communications, and then the fourth the 4 through 7 gears are what we call the performance gears, which are people having result-oriented goals, having visible scorecards that tell them whether they're performing against those goals or not. Clearly identifying the performance drivers, which are what are those critical behaviors, tasks, activities people undertake to be able to hit their goals. And then the last is what we call follow-up, follow-through, to both generate learning and create accountability for execution. So that last gear, follow-up, follow-through, is the glue that holds everything together. As you're saying the answer to that question, I'm thinking this sounds like what we hear on most of our sports shows in just a different context. Get the right people for the job, whether it's the quarterback if it's football, or a good pitcher, or a good relief pitcher.
align the players correctly in the right positions at the right time, who should be batting second, who should not be playing in that particular game, the culture of the organization. And all of the things you mentioned are what we're calling in the local sports channel, telling them, and yet we don't do it at our own business, and it's hurting us, hurting the stockholders, et cetera, et cetera. And just to show, I think you mentioned another anecdote that you asked 25 leaders of top flight organizations for the 3 priorities for resolving issues. And what happened?
we were working with this organization that was really struggling, and they knew they were struggling. In that particular case, they knew they were one of those companies that was falling way below where they thought they could get to from a result standpoint. So we started very simply with the top 25 leaders in that organization. We pulled them all together, and we asked them to identify, this is an organization that's struggling. Tell us what the top 3 priorities are for this organization for you all to get better and not struggle. Now, we didn't imagine that all 25 were going to align perfectly on the same 3. We thought we might have a list of 10 by the time we compiled all their responses. What we got were 25 separate, independent 3. Each of their lists was completely different from all the other lists. So we got a list of 75 top priorities from those 25 leaders, which means everybody's going in a different direction to try to solve the problems of the organization. There was no wonder that they weren't able to execute and deliver the results that they needed to deliver.
Most of us can handle 2 or 3 priorities for a day. That's why I want to emphasize that. And here you're talking to the top leaders of worldwide companies, and you got 75, meaning none of them agreed on even one of them together to say accounting or sales is important or the engineering department. So I think that kind of tells you're looking at a mishmash, and we all probably are, no matter what our business is, whether it's large or small.
Right.
Before we go further, I'd like our audience to know that you're listening to The Secrets of Success on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm your host, Bill Horan, but our guest today is Sean Ryan. He's the author of Get in Gear. And Sean, would you please tell us where we can get the book and if there's a website where we can find out more?
Absolutely. So the easiest way to get the book is to go to Amazon.com and type Get in Gear in the search bar, and we'll pop up pretty close to the top. A great website to get a hold of us at is our website, wwici.com.
And we'll ask you that again, so if someone wants to get it down, and I will tell our audience that, again, this is the kind of book that any business would like. It's about 160 pages. You could read it in an airport. You could bring it home and go through it over a weekend, and you're going to say, hey, there's a lot of good ideas that I could really put into effect. So you don't have to be a genius. You don't have to go out and get your doctorate in business or your MBA. You can just read Sean's book, look like a genius, act like a genius, and send Sean a Christmas card every year thanking him for all the good things he did for you. Sean, you have something in the book called The Execution Gap. What is that?
The execution gap is just all of those things that get in the way between the strategy that we have, how we want to position ourselves in the marketplace for success, and then delivering the results that we want to get. And so we've tried to capture the major components of the execution gap are captured in the 7 gears that we describe in the book.
Now, it's nice. I like all the books and authors I talk to. I learn something every week. But how does a company know if they're listening to the show that, oh my gosh, I really need Sean's book? What is it that, are there some telltale signs that they can look at and say, oh my gosh, he's talking about me. I better get hold of him, the book, and everybody in this field?
I think there are probably a few things. The first is, do you feel like when you get out of bed in the morning that you're hitting on all cylinders and delivering all the results that you expect to deliver for your owners or shareholders, other stakeholders, for your customers, and for your team? If any part of that strikes you as, we're probably not doing quite as good as we could, or the feedback that you get from your customers, or if you think your profits aren't where you think they ought to be, or if when you're talking to your teammates and the team members in your organization and you find out, just ask them, what are you struggling with? What gets in your way of being the best you possibly can every day? Those things would be really good indicators that there might be an opportunity to dive in and think about what you might do differently.
And Sean, I notice there's a term in your book, VUCA, V-U-C-A, all capital letters. And I'm seeing that a lot lately, and for good reason. So do you want to tell our audience what that is, what it means, and how it impacts a business?
Sure. It's actually a military acronym, VUCA, which stands for the world that we live in today. I describe it as a world of perpetual whitewater where it's constantly changing and in random kind of ways. But VUCA in particular stands for volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And I think we could all probably, if you didn't believe that we lived in a VUCA world before, say, February of 2020, we all have to believe that now as we navigate through COVID or getting on the other side of the COVID.
It sounds to me that's like asking someone for directions and having them hand it to you on a paper that's been ripped up a few times and in a foreign language and saying, here, do it. So I think more than anything today, what you're showing us, especially in the world, as guests have come on and said, we had to pivot immediately. Either that or we're out of business. I mean, there's no in between. And sometimes there's a little bit of flex room, but that does seem to be the world today. And as soon as we cure one problem, another one seems to pop up and make people like you more valuable.
Well, it is a little bit like playing a game of perpetual whack-a-mole, right? Where as soon as you whack down one mole, another one pops up someplace, and somebody has an infinite number of quarters to keep plugging that machine with.
Sean, to a businessman or woman hearing us talk today and they're saying, this is fine. 3 months ago, I started a so-and-so program, and a year before that, I was going to be part of this. How long does getting in gear roughly take to be real? What should a company expect? If I called you in as a consultant today and said, give me the real story, Sean, is it going to be a 3-week process, a 3-year process? And let's say we're talking about a 75-person company.
It can be almost instantaneous in some components, and some things take a little bit longer. So one of the cool things about these 7 gears, Bill, that we identified, I think one of the struggles that organizations face sometimes and why they don't get better, and they are playing that perpetual game of whack-a-mole, or they had some solution 3 months ago and a different solution 6 months before that, is that they're trying to eat the whole elephant in one big bite. And one of the cool things about the way the gears work is you don't have to fix every gear today. You can pick a gear that you think might be the most challenging, do some work on it, and you'll be better tomorrow or next week. Will you be perfect? Probably not. But then you can figure out what's the next thing that we need to work on that's going to make us that much better than we are today. For instance, I almost always suggest one of the first things we'll do in an organization that feels like it's struggling is we'll ask a leader or two to write down what they think the top 5 goals are for for a couple of their team members. And then we'll ask those team members to write down what they think their top 5 goals are. So now we've got the perspective from the leader and we've got the perspective from the team member. And how many do you think of those 2 lists of 5, there should be perfect overlap, play 5 on 5. How many actually overlap? On average, it's about 2. And so what we know is if you play 5 on 5 and then spend maybe 15 minutes talking about how do we align the goals between what the team members are working on and what the leader thinks they're supposed to be working on to the strategy of the organization, by the end of that conversation, the organization might be performing incrementally just a little bit better. So you can get some results quickly. Other results, if you have to go change compensation or the structure of the organization to better align the architecture, that's probably going to take a little bit of time to fix that one.
You know, I love what you say, and to your point, I once asked the president of a company, and I had a high position in the company, I said, I don't think a lot of the people know our goals. If that is what we were talking about, the particular goal you want them to force and to go in that direction. And I was told, oh, everybody knows our goal. They know what they are, and et cetera. Oh, okay. Of course, he was the president, so if that's what he said, I agreed with him. But I knew to myself, I said, if I don't know it and I hold one of the highest positions in the company, Maybe some of the other people don't think of that as the immediate goal. If it was to shut off all the lights, that's what you would do walking in and out. Well, shouldn't we know that this is what we're aiming for day in and day out? But, different strokes, different folks.
Well, Bill, you're armed with data now, because we've done that exercise over 10,000 times at every level of organizations, and it keeps coming back the same. On average, it's about 40% actually overlap.
Wow. And again, I think to the boss's credit, I think most of us think the company knows whether we're a law firm, it's to win our case. If we're a business organization, it's to make sales. But is it to win the customers, lifetime customers, get good reports back, get good consumer ratings, et cetera, et cetera? Of course, they can always be different, and we have to work with what we have. Sean, before we go on to the next question, I'd like to let our audience know if you're enjoying what you're hearing, if you think you can make your business or your operation or your organization just a little bit better, well, you're listening to The Secrets of Success on the voice of Nassau Community College on 90.3 WHPC. I'm Bill Horan, but the person you really want to learn from today is Sean Ryan. He is the author of the book, Get in Gear, and he's going to tell us where we can get the book and a website where we can learn some more.
Okay, you can get the book at Amazon.com and just type into the search bar, Get in Gear, the 7 gears that drive strategy to results. And you can also get a hold of us at our website at www.ici.com.
That's WWICI, you said, correct?
Yes.
Okay, ICI.com. So easy enough to remember. And again, want to save that business, want to turn things around. If you think your business might be suffering from this, and as Sean said, this is also easy. You don't have to do everything at once. It's 7 gears. If you can get 1 or 2 of them going, you're going to start seeing better results, more profitable results. And isn't that what we all want? Sean, one of the things in the gears you talked about was the right people. And personally, I'm a big proponent of that. If we listen to sports radio, it's like, get this new player in. Once we get him in, excuse me, or we get rid of this one, the team will be better. What are some of the problems? That sounds so easy, but is it? Let's say we have a company, 75 or 100 people. Do we just start unloading some people, or how does that process really work in the real world?
Well, that's a great question, Bill. The first thing you got to do is to get the right people, and you have to know who those right people are. And one of the mistakes that we see organizations make over and over and over again, especially when you get into that 75 to 100 person range, is we hire people solely for what we believe their technical functional skills are, not necessarily what their fit is with our values and what we stand for and believe in. And so you really have to start with who are we looking for? Who are the people? Not only, we certainly want technical functional skills, we need people who can do stuff. But if it's critical to our strategy that we have people that play well on a team, not great independent contributors, we need people who can interact well with other people on our team, then that has to be as an important of a selection criteria as their technical functional skills, if not more important.
Do we define certain things we're looking for in that person before they come in? And I know you have a section about playing, I think it's kickball or soccer in the street. And again, I thought that was a great analogy, that we have to know the playing field. We have to know the rules. So do we define them? Are we looking for a 6-foot-tall accountant who's 28 years old and friendly? Or define it a little further for us?
Yeah, I think it's more the value set of the organization, not necessarily what people, look like being 6 feet tall. Now look, if I'm running an NBA team, I certainly want the tallest, most talented, capable people I can get at every position. But if I'm thinking about my organization, I want to start with what's my value set around, and that's around things like fundamental things like honesty and integrity, respect, and then also things like teamwork, or if innovation is important to our organization, I need to go find people who are innovative. So I'm looking for those kinds of characteristics that people will bring to the organization that fit our value set. And our value set needs to be aligned to the strategy of the organization. What do we have to do to be successful? So there are times where you want great independent contributors. You want people who are just absolutely the best, and you really don't care if they got great personalities and they can interact with other people on the team really well, because you're just going to send your great independent contributors out to go do their thing. But in some organizations, and many organizations, teamwork and cooperation are more important. So you want to be looking for people that bring that to the table if that's going to be important to the success of your organization.
Sean, what do you do if you have that, and let's say a reasonably small company of 75 to 100 people, maybe even 25? One or two of them are clinkers. They're not going to fit in with this picture that you have of the organization going forward. They've been there 5 years and 13 years. So, a sizable amount of time they've invested. Do you try to retrain them? Can that happen? Or is that fantasy? Should you just go out and cut the string? Or how do you advise companies to handle that?
So, yeah, I think you try to do the best you can. We have to recognize we are in that VUCA world, as you talked about earlier, Bill, or that world of perpetual whitewater. So things are constantly changing. The skills and requirements and capabilities necessary to be successful as an organization are changing. And that also means that the skills, capabilities of our individuals in our organization have to change over time. So I think if you're going to be a great organization, you have to try to make every investment you can in your people to help them adapt, to help them build the new skills and capabilities. What you find is there are times when people can't make the change, or you find times where people really aren't a great fit for the culture of the organization. And by culture, again, I mean the fit with the value set. If people want to make the change, then I think you try to do the best you possibly can to help them. But there is a point at which if people can't make the change or they're not a great fit for your value set, then you do have to ask them to leave the organization.
Sean, you said there were 7 gears. Suppose you're coming to me and telling me this, and I like the ideas you're talking about, but I also say, as you said, we have to start at some step along the way. What would you say are the 2 or 3 that we would look at first and integrate them into our business?
So I think the place that I always start, because I learned so much when we do this, is that getting the result-oriented goals, what we call setting result-oriented goals, and we use SET as an acronym, S-E-T, start, end, time frame, because we think great goals all have a starting place, they've got an ending place, where you're trying to get to, how many units, maybe if you're a salesperson, you're trying to sell by the end of the year, what's the customer satisfaction level going to be if you're a customer service rep, or how many units of good production are you going to produce in the manufacturing department this year, next year, and what's the time frame you're going to get to that goal. So I think you always start with getting alignment around the goals. And then the next place that I think that you often start is to make sure that everybody who's performing has a visible scorecard. And so then those things help drive performance in the direction and allows you as an organization, if you've got great result-oriented goals for all your teams and all your people, and they've all got good scorecards, and you're still not getting all the way to the results you want, well, that begins to tell you, where do I need to look? Do I need different people with different capabilities? Do I need to enhance the capabilities of my team? Do we need different people? Is there some issue with our architecture where we're paying for X, but we expect Y? So we need to change compensation, or we need to change the structure. So I think you start with goals and scorecard, and then that tells you where else you might need to look to get better.
Sean, I'm an old math teacher, and I love it when you said those two. I didn't know which 2 you'd pick, but setting goals and a visible scorecard, that's right up my alley, because it's like the game score. We know at the end who the winner, who the loser is, who did well, and it's easy to have something quantifiable to track. We want to thank you so much for being with us, and once again, just remind our audience, our guest today has been Sean Ryan. He's the author of the book, Get in Gear, and real quick, that website?
www.ici.com.
Sean, thank you so much for being with us today.
I appreciate it. It was a good, fun conversation.
As a reminder to our audience, you've been listening to The Secrets of Success on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm your host, Bill Horan, asking you to please join us again next week at the same time when we will continue our journey to success.